Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to BiblioTech On Air. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Ruby.
I'm Israel.
And I'm Lewis.
And today, in honor of Hispanic Heritage Month, we will be covering the 2006 dark fantasy film Pan's Labyrinth, directed by Mexican director Guillermo del Toro, also the director of The Shape of Water, which won Best Picture back in, I think, 2017, Devil's Backbone, Hellboy, and more. But before that, if you want a little bit more of an in-depth book to go with this, check out Pan's Labyrinth, The Labyrinth of Fawn, available on cloudLibrary. Fans of dark fairy tales like The Hazelwood and The Cruel Prince will relish this atmospheric and absorbing book based on Guillermo del Toro's critically acclaimed movie. Oscar-winning writer and director Guillermo del Toro and New York Times bestseller author Cornelia Funk have come together to transform del Toro's hit movie Pan's Labyrinth into an epic and dark fantasy novel for readers of all ages, complete with enchanting short stories that flesh out the folklore of this fantasy world. Cool. This spellbinding tale takes readers to a sinister, magical, and war-torn world filled with richly drawn characters like trickster fawns, murderous soldiers, child-eating monsters, which we're going to get into, courageous rebels, and a long-lost princess hoping to be reunited with her family. A brilliant collab between masterful storytellers that's not to be missed.
Yeah, I definitely recommend that. And then also we'll give you just a synopsis of the movie that we're going to be reviewing. Ruby, you want to take that away?
A little synopsis of it. Pan's Labyrinth, as Rosanna said, came out in 2006, directed by Guillermo del Toro, is a dark fantasy set in post-Civil War Spain during Francisco Franco's early dictatorship. The story follows Ofelia, a young girl who moves with her pregnant mother to live with her cruel stepfather, Capitan Vidal. Amidst Vidal's brutal efforts to suppress anti-Franco rebels, Ofelia discovers a labyrinth and meets a fawn who claims she is the reincarnation of Princess Moana. To reclaim her throne, she must complete 3 dangerous tasks. As Ofelia navigates these challenges, the film intertwines her grim reality with the magical yet perilous world, exploring themes of innocence, sacrifice, and the clash between good and evil. Pan's Labyrinth blurs the line between fantasy and reality, leaving the audience to question whether Ophelia's fantastical journey is real or imagined. The film is praised for its stunning visuals and deep emotional impact, particularly in its portrayal of war through a child's eyes.
Yeah, so just general discussion. What did y'all think? Did y'all like it? Did y'all not like it? I believe y'all, Ruby, you had not seen it before ever.
I have not seen it.
And y'all saw clips, correct?
Yes, I'd seen a couple of clips. I knew how it ended. And I had seen the Pale Man scene, which again, we will get into.
Classic.
But it had always seemed way up my alley. So whenever you said that we were going to be covering this, I was over the moon about it.
Yeah.
And I really liked it.
Good. What about you, Rosanna? Did you like it?
It was wonderful. The soundtrack, the atmosphere. Oh, yeah. It's also like a very, we're approaching fall, so kind of a very good fall vibes with the dark fantasy about it.
Civil War gives fall vibes.
It really does. It really does.
It's grim, at least.
But yeah, it was so good. The acting, top tier. The writing, the cinematography, and the scenery. My goodness.
I mean, what could we expect from Guillermo del Toro,
exactly.
What could we expect but nothing but awesomeness. It was a movie I grew up watching, actually.
Nice.
Yeah.
Even though it's rated R and specifically not meant for children.
Yeah, I think since it didn't have any like sexual content, my parents were okay with me watching that type of thing. I'm not sure how old I was in 2006. But I would watch it throughout the years and things like that. It had been a while since I had rewatched it, so it was really nice. But yeah, we do have a set of questions to kind of guide our conversation. So let's get right into those. Pan's Labyrinth is set against the backdrop of war, but it also focuses heavily on Ophelia's inner world. So how do you think the film balances between these two parallel stories, and which side of the story resonates more with you? So we have the war going on, and then we also have this fantasy world going on, right? And so she's trying to, essentially, a fawn goes to her and says, so you're Princess Moana, but there's 3 tasks that you need to do, right? So the first one being the toad to get the key, and then the pale man to get the sword or the dagger, and then the final one, like innocence, right? Kind of grappling with whether to do this or not to do this. So yeah, with that question, how do you think the film balances these 2 parallel stories, and which side of the story resonates more with you?
So, go on.
Obviously, the fantasy part of the story.
I think so. Since fairy tales like forever have been like served the function of explaining the unknown or giving comfort or giving, an element of like whimsy to life, especially when times are really hard. I feel like the way that concept is like interwoven in with the realities of living in civil war and living in living for Ophelia, living in the care and home of like a fascistic army, you know. I feel like they're woven together very, very well, and they parallel each other in that, like, the world, especially for a child, is a very scary place, especially when you're living in such a traumatic situation. And sometimes the only way that you can try to escape is through the realm of fantasy. But even in that fantasy, there is dealing with the trauma that is coming with things and finding a way to face very terrifying challenges.
Yeah, she was a very brave little girl.
Yeah.
Very
brave. Like, she wasn't scared of this fawn creature. She wasn't scared of these fairy creatures. And then also, like, given the situation with her mom and her stepfather, Vidal, I didn't really sense any fear from her.
No, yeah.
I mean, she was already like kind of, I guess, prepping herself for that in a way. I don't know if maybe it was like a subconscious thing since she was actually the princess, but we see her with her fairy tale books and they're always, you know, harping on her like, why do you still read those? Why do you still go, you know, back into those books? You're getting older. But that's just something that's been part of her whole life. And then now we see what's supposed to be a fantasy become her reality. You know, that's just what she needed at the time.
I like this kind of storyline. It's like a storyline that will always stand still throughout whatever time period we're in. It's like Don Quixote, like how he was very submersed in the fantasy world and people were looking down on that. So that's where I saw the similarities in both characters and how it's questionable, like what she's doing. Is it real or is it just her imagination?
Yeah, and
which I think it's her imagination.
Yeah, and we'll definitely get into that. But we see at the very end when Vidal goes to confront her, right, at that little
The portal
site. She's talking to the fawn, but he doesn't see the fawn.
Yeah.
So
right. It could just be that only certain individuals can see it.
I'm excited to get into that topic later because I was just talking with Rosanna.
Had a whole discussion
we had a
about
conversation about this, about something that I had read, somebody else's take on it, and I'm really excited to put it forward, I guess.
Nice. Well, as I previously mentioned, she did do three tasks, right? 3 tests. So she receives 3 tasks from the fawn, and if you had to complete one, which task do you think you'd be able to tackle the best?
I feel like
frog, man, and then the very big decision whether to sacrifice yourself or someone else.
I think I'd easily sacrifice myself. I feel like I do that.
It's a win-win.
Yeah, it's a win-win. No, but yeah, the frog grossed me out. That was a really unsettling scene. And of course, the pale man, my God.
Well, see, I'm going to put it here. I think the pale man personally would be the easiest one because it's like, as long as you don't touch,
eat the fruit.
Don't touch like anything on the table.
Yeah.
You're good. And the fairies were actively like being like, hey, don't do it. So it's like, go in, grab what you're going to get out.
What about you, Louis?
Done.
My thing with that, though, is that part, like at the very end, she is explicitly rewarded for disobeying orders, like she disobeys orders during like her trial of the pale man. And then also her disobeying this form of authority being like, please, like, let me like spill the blood of your brother. And she's like defiant against it. And that ends up being like part of the test.
Yeah.
When it comes to her disobeying the fawn's orders with the pale man, maybe it would have kept her out of danger, but maybe it would have proved that she wasn't worthy.
Maybe
true.
So
could have.
In terms of if I would want to say that I would face the one with the pale man because I would just follow instructions, and I would not get chased, and I would do everything really quickly with like with a sense of urgency. However, if the point was to prove that like you are like that she has her own like will and that she has like the right idea of what to do, even if it's against orders, I think I would have failed that trial, honestly.
So here's my thing with the pale man. I believe that the table, the food on the table presents itself on what's going to be most tempting to you. So she was, they weren't poor. This was a captain that her stepfather was, but it was very enticing things. She was tempted because she couldn't resist the grapes. So I wonder if it changes based on what you're interested in. So for example, Rosanna, you have that new Zelda coming out, that game coming out. It could have had like an awesome Switch Zelda game. I don't know, man. You might not have been able to do it.
You know, let me just sit down and do a quick run through of the.
So like not always food. Just
that's
like,
what I'm thinking, because I feel like as a demon, if I were the pale-faced man, I wouldn't just have food on there because and I think it also depends on the situation, on what it manifests as. You know, that's what was going to tempt her. I don't know if it would, maybe like Jason Mraz would be there with his guitar, you know, a quick serenade.
Serenade.
You know, there is 3 fairies.
Yeah.
I'm going to disagree just a little bit because I do love that idea, but I think it's just all feast themed personally because he's looking to have a feast himself.
Oh, yeah.
So
I honestly also, sorry, I just remembered, I think the night before she's also sent to bed without dinner. I don't know if like she hadn't,
because of the dress.
Yeah, she hadn't eaten that day like prior to her going to see the Pale Man.
Yeah.
But like she at least was like a little bit hungry comparative to like probably the last couple days she had been living there, you know?
That's very true.
Yeah. So in that sense, maybe it does change. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not sure.
It is interesting though, like the concept that it could change and be tailored according to your own interests or needs at the time.
Yeah, because like that's the first thing that came to my head, and I'm not sure. That's why it makes kind of this question kind of difficult for myself, because the toad is so disgusting.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
No.
I wouldn't want to kill someone or kill myself, but if I knew, I don't know.
And
I guess it just
she didn't know.
depends.
Yeah.
Yeah, she didn't know. I would know maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. The Pale Man one just seems the most like
The Pale
the
Man.
winnable, I guess. But like, you know,
I get you.
There's also, you know, the whole trial at the very end is like kind of the whole movie is like, are you going to be just like disobedient to the end and like fight for what is right, as opposed to what would be the easiest to follow along with and like what's being imposed on you? Like, are you going to recognize that your little brother is innocent and does not deserve to have his blood spilled and then, you know, pay for that with your life? That is a very difficult decision to make, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Doesn't seem winnable in terms of like which would be easiest.
Well, I was stuck too on the fact like if she should even trust the fawn.
Yeah.
Like, is he like a trustable person
Right.
to be doing these tasks for? Because like in my head, I was thinking like maybe he's just having her do all these things like for self gain for him. Like maybe he has more malicious intent,
Right.
and it's just like
Yeah.
persuading
Yeah,
her.
for his own benefit.
Because
Yeah.
as cool as he is, like he doesn't exactly come off as
Mr. Nice
benevolent,
Guy.
you know.
Yeah, definitely not.
Yeah.
But real quick, I just want to touch on like the whole going back to the whole parallels, like, you know, tying the story with war versus her fantasy and the theme of disobedience. Like you kind of see it on both sides. Ophelia being disobedient in the fantasy world, and then you see like, you know, the dissidents with you know, the rebels, like they're rebelling, they're actively disobeying that. So it's definitely a theme that's like prevalent throughout the whole movie. Just the theme of disobedience and kind of free will in a way.
Yeah, definitely. Before we move on to the next question, and we were previously talking about this before we started recording, but I had mentioned, how long do y'all think? So in the very beginning, we see that the princess moved away, that she ran away from the underworld. How many years do you think passed from that occurrence, that situation, to Ophelia?
I think it could have been centuries, honestly. Like I do, especially because like he does say like, this is the last portal. I'm the last one waiting,
Yeah.
you know? And that labyrinth already looked like extremely like aged, you know? I really think that like it could have been a very long time. And then everyone else who was like presumably guarding portals around the world were like, I don't feel like this anymore. And the fawn is just like, nah, I'm staying put. You
That,
know?
or maybe they exhausted him too. Like we were talking about earlier, how like, you know, there were other kids that they tried to get for the trials, but
Potentially, yeah.
and maybe that just kind of like causes the portal to disappear because it's like, well, this isn't the kid.
Maybe,
Next
yeah.
one.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
They didn't kill themselves.
I wonder if it was just that fawn or if there was other like individuals, other fawns or other creatures searching for the princess. And also I wonder how they would get the inkling like, okay, so this is the descendant. This is who it's going to be. I don't know. interesting. I do recommend checking out that book that Rosanna had mentioned in the very beginning, because it does say that it goes a little bit more in depth into certain characters. So it might give a little bit more backstory. So I'm definitely going to be checking that out. On the topic of like visuals and things like that. So it's Pan's Labyrinth is like y'all had mentioned it. It was stunning. Like the visuals were amazing, the costume, the sets, all of that type of stuff. Did y'all have a favorite scene? Oh man, something that stood out to you?
I liked the Pale Man. I felt like he resembled the movie. Anytime I hear about Pan's Labyrinth, I see that guy with the eyes on his hands.
Yeah, definitely.
In general, I was a huge fan of the movie's use of color. Like the green is so, especially at the beginning when things have not like gone to despair quite yet. The greens are so rich and the golds are so rich, you know, and it's very visually like pleasing. And whenever it's nighttime and she goes down to the labyrinth for the first time, it's bathed in like this very like blue silver moonlight, you know, everything is very like mystical. Whenever you cut to Vidal, everything is like still like blue and gray, but very like steely, very like monochrome.
Very cold.
Yeah, it uses its colors wonderfully. And by the time that the movie has progressed on, the greens are more muddy and more muted, but they're still there. The entire rebel army is dressed in that dark green, like that kind of like camouflaging green. No, like it is such like a clear symbol of like, this is like the like more protagonist side of the movie versus the ruthless kind of like blue-gray of the fascistic army.
One of the scenes that I really liked was with the mandrake when Vidal found it, and then Ophelia's mother found it as well, and she throws it in the fire, and she doesn't believe, but this is like an inkling that what she's seen is true, because we hear the audience, and then also the mother hears this creature screech, kind of hinting that perhaps this isn't all in Ophelia's head, you know? So that's one of the scenes that I really liked. Another scene was when, what's her name? It was
Mercedes?
Mercedes, yeah. When she cuts Vidal.
Oh,
She
yeah. That
wrecked
was good.
his stuff. That was
that was
good.
awesome. That was so good. Because, like, he was such a mean character.
The machismo was
Yeah.
just, ugh.
Also, I had looked into it because I was like, I wonder what Spain was during, because this occurred during like post World War II, post the Spanish Civil War, and I was like, what side was Spain on?
Yeah.
Like, what were they doing? So they were predominantly neutral, it said, but it leaned to favoring the Nazis and things like that. So it makes sense that we have this Vidal character who kind of has this machista way of thinking, and you know. But was there any other visuals that y'all liked? Anything? Any scenes?
I also like I really think that the costuming work was a work of magic. Like it was really just, it was so beautifully done. Like every part, like the practical effects in this movie are outstanding. The CGI is a little dated now. Like a lot of the stuff with the toad is like, you can see kind of like, you can see the kind of like video gamey sort of texture to it at this point. But like it's still, they still hide it quite well, all things considered. But I will say, as someone who is an enormous fan of fairy tales, but Alice in Wonderland in particular, the costume that they chose for Ophelia, the green dress with the white apron with the green, like green Alice, basically at that point.
Green Alice.
Because that's at the point where she's like, the greens are still very vibrant. She's like about to go on this magical quest. She just found out that she's a princess. She's got the birthmark on her shoulder, you know? And her first task is going into this tree. And you think like, you know, the movie is rated R, so you know it's not going to go great. But like you see her just like take that symbol of like, you know, like other fairy tales where like the female protagonists get to go on like a relatively like, you know, elegant journey. She takes that off and then she comes out completely like muddied and mussed up, and her dress isn't there waiting for her. It's muddied and it's disgusting. And it's like, cool. There's like the real world sucks, and all of that disgusting stuff I had to do in the tree also sucked. So my little magical journey is really not coming off to like a great start.
She's not your typical princess that jumps in water and comes out with fabulous hair.
Yeah. No,
She's a different kind of Moana. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. One of the things that isn't really necessarily like a scene or anything, but when we first see the fairy creature, it's a
Bug.
Stick bug.
it's like a stick bug, and then it transforms into the fairy. I wonder what its real form is, and I wonder if the fawn is probably that's its real form, but I wonder what form it is originally, because I feel like that creature specifically probably takes upon like the image of what it's going to camouflage as and things like that, what's going to help it survive. So I just wonder, because then when the fawn opens up his little satchel, there's the two other fairies are in there too, but were they bugs then in there?
And then
I don't know. I'm just kind of wondering.
Maybe the other one came home as a fairy and they're like, ooh, I want to try that.
That looks good.
Yeah.
That's a good look.
That's a good look.
It's kind of like that biblical thing where it's like where angels come down and talk to you in a form that they think is going to be you're going to be more receptive to. So maybe that's what the fairies were doing.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're just shapeshifters.
They're definitely shapeshifters.
Because when she showed the book and she was like, that's a fairy. He was just all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so kind of shifting over to
Shape-shifting over.
to Captain Vidal. He's one of the most chilling characters in the film. So what do you think this character represents, and how does his obsession with control contrast with Ophelia's imaginative world?
I think that y'all were right on the money with like the machismo, that sort of thing. Like I think that he really does embody like the fascist ideals that he is upholding literally by force, because he feels entitled to the future as something that is his own. Like no one that he sees as below him, which is most people, should be allowed to survive, should be allowed to mess up his sense of perfection. And I feel like he really does like underestimate and undermine like a lot of characters, but specifically the women that are around him, because he sees them as lesser. He hadn't even ever considered them as anything more than, this is the woman who's going to bear my son, this is the woman who does my laundry, and this is my wife's daughter, just very much not giving any thought to what threat they might pose to his sense of order, because he does not think them capable. And I think that he is just, he's just a scumbag. And I think that I think Rosanna, you were talking about it, like he's technically a really good tactician, and like he notices things that
like the lock on the storage room.
Like he's very ruthless and very calculated, but
that's his own undoing.
Yeah.
I mean, not a good guy. He legit killed the little girl in the end just to take his son. But I don't know, you said best scenes. The best scene we were talking about earlier, when he goes out and is like, tell my son the time I died.
Coldest line in the film.
And she was like, he will not even know your name.
Slay.
Yeah, definitely.
So good.
Do you think the film would have been just as impactful if it was in English, not Spanish?
I feel like there's more of a whimsy with the Spanish,
I also feel like it's just true to the setting to have everyone speaking in Spanish, Like I think that there would have been really no point to put it in English. Especially since, subtitles exist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
And I want to say I read somewhere that Guillermo himself was like, I'm going to work on these subtitles myself, because other times they're not translated well, and it's just dookie. So
that's awesome.
I want to make sure it's as authentic as possible.
Yeah, I had noticed like how well the captions were, like how well the captions were written, and how like well the intention came across, because I watch captions for a lot of things because they just help me process like auditorily. And I've been in many situations where I'm reading the captions. I'm like, that's not what he said.
Yeah.
you know?
Righty. So shifting over to like that overarching question, right? So there's that lingering question, whether the fantasy world Ophelia experiences is real or a product of her imagination. So I'd like to hear what each of y'all kind of think. So where do you stand on that debate? And where do you stand on that debate? What do you think?
In your head. I think it was all in her head. I think it was just fantasy. Yeah.
Really? How come?
Just because, like I said, like Don Quixote, like it was all in his head. He was just like fantasizing about everything, since he loved fairy tales and things like that. So that's where I see her being. And then like especially the last scene when the the captain didn't see anyone that she was talking to, unless specific people only can see. Only special people can see it.
You know, it could also be that it's her way of coping with the situation that she's going through. Her mother dying and all that type of stuff. Her father passing away as well before. It could be a coping mechanism as well. So I could definitely see it leaning that way. I'm more inclined to believe that it's real, right? But there's like certain reasons, and I also have something written that I have found here, written down on my notes. But what do you think, Rosanna?
I think it was real, and kind of going on with what, like, you know, maybe certain people can believe it, because we do hear from Mercedes early on where Ophelia's like, do you believe in, like, you know, these kinds of things? She's like, I did when I was a child, but not anymore. And then, of course, Louis has an absolute fantastic point that they're going to bring up in a bit. But I think it's just like, you know, like pure hearts and innocence that can probably see and exist in that realm of fantasy. And obviously Vidal, you know, he is not exactly innocent.
Yeah.
So he's not going to be able to see that. But also with the mom possibly hearing the mandrake.
Yeah.
Like there's still some kind of whimsy that maybe, or, you know, that innocence that she's hoping for, or maybe that's
maybe
the
because
brother.
she has a baby. Yeah.
It might be because she has the baby too. So
But, yeah,
I think it was real, especially like how it started with her putting in that little rock piece into the, you know, the statue. I think that kind of like activated things and unlocked it. So
I wonder if putting the rock in the eye of that statue, I wonder if that's if that's what selected her as, you know, as the individual, the reincarnation. Was she already the reincarnation and then she did that, or was that just a confirmation like, okay, this is who it is? What about you, Louis?
So I was really, when I was going through the entire movie being like, I believe that this is real. I like see where it can be symbolically like I was saying earlier, fairy tales can be used as a coping mechanism and used as something that can give people comfort during times of incredible stress. But I was really liking the ambiguity of it until we got to the end where Vidal sees her speaking to no one. And I was like, oh, I really wish they'd kept it more ambiguous. That's kind of a shame that they're like revealing it. However, as I was looking into stuff like analysis stuff after the movie, somebody had brought up, remember that Vidal has been drugged at this point, and he is running on like adrenaline and and is like fighting off sleep medication. So, and whenever at the very beginning of the movie, when the fawn presents himself, he is blending in with the background.
Very camouflaged.
Yeah, very camouflaged, and only really starts to look like a being separate from the background when he starts moving and talking. So it could be that Vidal comes across Ophelia and is just thinking, there she is, she's stopped, she's distracted, let me kill her. And also still has like very like hazy vision or perspective. And the fawn is there because the fawn by that point has like turned his back on Ophelia because she disobeyed him and is walking away, not showing his face. So it could be possible that Vidal is so focused on, he found Ophelia, it's time to strike, that he didn't even notice him.
Yeah, because he didn't even react and be like, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
But, you know, he could be hyper-focused on his son.
and also blood loss too.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. So in my research as well, so Guillermo del Toro like leaves it up to the audience to kind of decide. But there is inklings that this is real. The mandrake, because how did her mother get better? You know, then we hear the screech, but then also the chalk.
Yes.
You know, how did that work? It could have been a dream. She could have been imagining it, but the fact that Ophelia had no way of getting from the attic all the way to the captain's office without using the chalk door, that's kind of one of the things that's like, there's no way that could have been done. So for those reasons and more, that's only meaning that it's probably real.
Yeah. Also, the mandrake, like she gets
or mandragora.
She gets the mandrake root from the fawn. Like, sure, maybe like she was like, I don't know, like sleepwalking or something, and she goes out and gets it herself. But also, she still physically has it like in her bedroom, and it has been delivered to her. So, like, I don't know. There's like too many like physical objects and like physical space things at play where I'm like, it would make far more sense if this was real, as opposed to there's so much that we're not seeing where she's like doing these things without actually doing them, you know?
Yeah.
And then so probably major spoiler, but Guillermo, because I do remember when the movie came out, that was a big point of like the whole movie. Was it real? Was it happening in her head? And apparently for a while, that ambiguity, he was just like, well,
it's up to interpretation.
Yeah, but then he did come out and confirm like, nah, it's real. Like it's straight up real. Like it is going on.
From my own experience.
From my own
I am
experience.
Princess Moana.
It was a biopic.
Yeah.
No, but like he does confirm like the events happening to Moana are very real. Like it's not fantasy. Well, it's not fake, but
Yeah. But what would you rate this movie out of 10?
10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
100%.
Pretty good. Didn't win Best Picture, so can't be that 10 out of 10. No, I'm just
did
kidding.
win a lot of awards though.
It did win a lot of awards.
They were wrong for that.
They were wrong for that. I think 8, 9, 8.5.
8.5? Rosanna?
Probably like a 9.5. Like it's dang near perfect.
Like, I can't think of a single thing that I would want to have been different.
I'm really thinking. Yeah, I would give it 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10?
10 out of 10.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a great movie, great storytelling, very impactful. There's so many things that lead you to think about other things. It opens discussion of, is this real? Is it not real? It hits everything.
And there's characters we didn't even get into all that much. Like Mercedes, the doctor, the rebellion themselves. Like there's just so much you could analyze about this movie. And
which I'm sure people have.
Yeah, it's like it is a masterpiece, and it is like a true like modern fairy tale.
Yeah,
Like,
definitely.
it's incredible.
Definitely. I wonder where he drew inspiration for these like for these characters and things like that. I wonder if there's like some type of Spaniards folklore that he pulled from, or if our Mexican folklore. I haven't heard anything about fawns and.
Well, we were discussing earlier too how there's like a lot of femininity in the movie as well. Like I think I saw an interview where he was talking about the cover for the movie. Like it is like the fawn, but it also resembles like
The
a uterus.
uterus,
So he was like, yeah, that's on purpose.
Yeah, and it's very like coming of age story. A lot of association with the moon, and also like childbirth. You
It's
know,
a phenomenon.
It's a phenomenon.
Pan's Labyrinth phenomenon of 2006.
Guillermo del Toro loves his ladies. He loves the women. He loves
he's a girly. He's
he
one
is.
of the girlies.
He loves the girls.
We stan.
But yeah, with that, we can go ahead and end it there.
All right, so with that, we're going to go ahead and end it. Again, make sure you check out, if you haven't already, 2006, Pan's Labyrinth by Guillermo del Toro, and check out Pan's Labyrinth, The Labyrinth of Fawn, available on both cloudLibrary and Hoopla.
We also have the
whammy.
soundtrack.
Which, again, the
on
music
Hoopla.
was a whole nother big part. See, we could go into so much, but yeah, that lullaby scene. So
Yeah, very beautiful.
But yeah. So thanks for tuning in to this episode. Make sure y'all check out more of our reviews, interviews, book reviews, and more. I'm Rosanna.
I'm Ruby.
I'm Israel.
And I'm Lewis.
Bye.